There's always one that falls to the wayside. For me, it was Bad Religion. I was much more interested in NoFX because they were kind of silly and immature, and I'm very silly and immature. So I was never the biggest Bad Religion fan. It wasn't that I disliked Bad Religion. That is absolutely not the case. I just I was so focused on the other bands that were around back then. You know how that is, man. There's always one that falls to the wayside. For me, it was Bad Religion. I was much more interested in NoFX because they were kind of silly and immature, and I'm very silly and immature. So Bad Religion is much more serious. Like I fell out of the Dead Kennedys real early on too. Like I wasn't interested in that either. I was more of a stubborn, I want to do what I want punk more so than a political punk. That being said, there is some Bad Religion stuff that's very important to me. I'll just read what I wrote down real quick and we'll go from there because I definitely want to hear your response to this. All Ages is a compilation from 1995 that Bad Religion put out on Epitaph Records. It's got songs from No Control, Suffer, Against the Grain, and Generator. I think maybe even a couple of live tracks and maybe one more. It's all their early stuff. It's all their early albums.
It's their Epitaph catalog.
Oh, is that what it is?
So right after they signed to Atlantic, Epitaph kind of had like one more Bad Religion release, and it was they put out basically a greatest hits. You know,
that's okay. So I all these years it was called All Ages. So for all these years, I thought it was a live album.
It looks like one because it looks like it's a concert ticket the way it is. But really, if you want to know like what is Bad Religion's core live set, it's basically that. Like the songs that they'll never not play at their shows are those songs basically.
I absolutely agree with that. And so that was the only album of theirs that I had for a long time. For a long time. I don't remember why. I would assume it's probably because of the imagery and the name. My mom wasn't going to be having any of that. And whatever, that's the mom's prerogative when I was a kid, but so I've always kind of liked the early 90s Bad Religion stuff. I never got into anything post this album actually. Gray Race, I think I owned it, but I never really listened to it. I couldn't tell you a song off of it. Yeah, man. So whenever this stuff was happening, I was more into the street punk type vocals. So the music in the Bad Religion stuff I really enjoyed. It was the vocals I was never really into, man. Like I don't dislike them, but it's not like now I kind of like them a little bit. I've kind of it's kind of like it was Bad Religion. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, I just it wasn't for me, man. And it's like it's weird because they are owed so much gratitude because they've influenced so many bands that I do love. Like a lot, and they were never considered a top band to me, which is so crazy because they probably are like the top band, like one of the greatest, right? Last thing I'll say before I let you talk for a minute is that I just found out what their name actually means too, like doing research for this video, and it kind of changed a lot about like my feelings towards the band. I always thought it was like an anti-God thing, and it was like from what I found out, it was more like an anti-religion, anti-organized religion, anti any way of life that makes it hard on people kind of thing. Even like a religion is like any kind of societal group of people that gets together and causes problems. It's anti that. It's anti-establishment. And I never would have thought that based on the name. And since I didn't get into them, I didn't know that. It's freaking crazy that I'm 41 and just now finding that out. I didn't have the interest to find out. Like, what did I care? I didn't care. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So very weird thing to just find out about. So anyways, I would like to hear your response to my thoughts and what do you think about all that?
That last point kind of blew me away, but I was thinking I was going to have to convince you of that based on your comments last week. Like I thought that's what was going to be almost my mission of the episode, because it's funny with Bad Religion. In some ways, Bad Religion is the most insulting towards religion of any band because they provide actual critique of religion and its role in society, which is funny. That's different than them being like how people may perceive it as like a satanic band or a satanic imagery band. They're not actually like that. And they like a lot of forms of punk rock, they criticize societal institutions. The primary institution that they go by is organized religion. That is like, instead of it being necessarily like the White House or this and that, it is organized religion as kind of their prime target. But if you look at it, it's more of like Dr. Graffin. He's this naturalist. He talks about less than an atheist and that kind of stuff. So it's really in the weeds. Whereas like Slayer, for example, is just doing a horror movie. Whereas Bad Religion is an actual critique of all of the system and society. And it's funny to me that it just didn't hit you. I get what you mean about like certain really important bands in all kinds of genres that you just sort of miss, and you got all their after effects.
It's like, wild, bro. Like
pretty much everything we've talked about is because of Bad Religion. Like that is the origin band for almost everything, for certainly every part of my channel. Like I think you can say that's the genesis of my channel is the Bad Religion era.
I think you're absolutely correct especially with your channel. What I will say though is that I've always stood on, just because it was done first doesn't mean it's the best or done right. So there is a little bit of that, I would say.
Absolutely.
I still think Bad Religion deserves more credit than that, but that's how I always stand on that. Just like with Rancid and the Clash, dude. The Clash, I don't like the Clash.
That's my version of this.
You know what I'm saying? So like, And what's funny is that since I wasn't given the opportunity to dive into this band, mostly because my mom wasn't feeling it, so I didn't feel the need to press the issue because I thought, man, I've got all these other bands to listen to. Mm-hmm. That's really what it kind of boiled down to. I had all ages, and it was such a great album. I just listened to those songs, and that's what I liked. And I didn't have any interest of going and getting into any of the more of their stuff. And then when like Gray Race came out, I just didn't get into it. So I never explored the band more than that. And I've seen them play like 5 times, which is crazy for somebody that doesn't really love the band. And it's also crazy that in like the 90s, they're so iconic with the symbolism that I used that on a shirt at my alternative school that I was going to. So everybody knew that I was a punk rock kid. Mm-hmm. Even though I didn't really care about the band. Like I had all ages. I knew most every song on that record, right? Yeah. I would consider myself reasonably fan of that band at that time. Mm-hmm. But that's like where it stopped, and like that would have been an appropriate liftoff point, not like the end. And it's so crazy, man. Like I don't have much negative to say about Bad Religion. That's not what I've ever had. I've never had anything negative to say about them. I just never had a lot of glowing critiques of them and like, oh, they're this or that, and their songwriting's really good. They're very melodic. I like a lot of their stuff, but it's like his vocals get on my nerves sometimes. I just they're so Bad Religion-y, dude. Like he's just got this like it's not monotone, but it's like it's professor-like, you know. I mean, you know, I will say though, I do appreciate the fact that they're critiquing organized religion more so than God, because I am a little bit religious, and I do think there's a lot of problems with organized religion. So I feel it. You know, it opened my eyes to something that like. I don't know. I you know what it is? It's like when my friends tell me something, or like my boss tells me something, I want to like buck up against it and be like, no. But if I like just read it, I'm more open to accepting something. My wife does it sometimes too. It's really, really weird, man. I know it's got to be annoying to people. I know that drives my friends nuts. But I guess I am kind of glad that I just read that, because I didn't even read it. I heard it on a podcast, and I was like, what? And I was like, they're not an anti-religion band, and I was like, that's an odd name for not anti-religion band, or anti I guess faith, anti-God.
Because they're not a pro-religion band, and like I said, that they are clearly atheistic and do criticize organized religion as a whole. But like you said, and they've been on TV. Like if they're on TV, you're not saying that's the crazy person, or that's the insane person, or that's the dangerous person,
right?
Necessarily,
that's the educated person.
It's presented more as a perspective. That's a perspective that's pretty well accepted. Just they kind of lean into it a bit much, but
they're still like punk rockers though, so they still have that like.
And they don't like Graff and Sideways. He actually doesn't even like, because he's a true believer in the sense that he's literally a college professor. Like he's a PhD, he's a doctor. So he doesn't like a lot of the stuff that goes along with it. So like they did a thing for a book, New Atheist book, and they had him do an intro, more so because of his academic work than who he is in Bad Religion. But he didn't even really like being associated with that group. And it makes you realize like Bad Religion is really its own thing. Yes, he's a professor. Yes, Brett does Epitaph, but Bad Religion as sort of like historical text or whatever kind of exists on its own, because like you said, it also is punk rock. Like it's all these dance things, but you also have a song called Fuck You. You also have a song called Punk Rock Song. Like it is still very much punk rock, and born in the spirit and the time period of punk rock. Absolutely.
It's really interesting, and I'm glad that we're talking about this. And because I've never claimed to be the most educated punk rocker, I've never claimed to be like the coolest or the most punk rock. I just, that's not who I am. I don't care about that. I've got my insecurities, but if I was that insecure, I wouldn't be doing this episode.